The walls were white again. The walls of the apartment had once been white. Now they were yellowed with time, edges darkened with the smudges of fingers that had searched for switches in the dark, dragged down by hands that had braced against them during nights of sobbing. He no longer knew how many days he had spent inside. The blinds were closed, permanently it seemed, and the air tasted of metal, unwashed linen, and silence too thick to breathe properly. Time had ceased to be linear. There was only before her and after. Her name sat beneath his skin like an itch he could never reach, pressed into his ribs, between his teeth, behind his eyes. She was not dead. No, that would have made it simpler, even poetic. She was elsewhere, alive, breathing, eating food she might have once shared with him, laughing in a way that had once been his to provoke. The worst kind of ghost, one that went on living. He hadn't always been like this. Before she left, he had been meticulous. Clean-shaven, orderly, a man of habit and responsibility. Now, mold grew in coffee mugs forgotten in the sink. His hair was greasy, curled against his scalp like roots of something rotten. Sleep visited him only in fragments, and when it did, it showed him the curve of her neck, the trembling in her voice when she said, "Don't wait for me." She had meant it kindly. That was what ruined him. There had been others, people who tried to shake him back into life. Friends knocking on the door, voices muffled by the thick wooden barrier he never unlocked. His sister had called repeatedly, even left groceries outside. He never opened them. The milk inside those bags had soured, burst one day in the summer heat, leaking down the steps like a warning. Eventually, they stopped coming. He preferred it that way. He began keeping track of her online. At first, it had been harmless. An old friend had tagged her in a photo, smiling, holding a glass of wine, her hair longer. Her smile seemed more tired than he remembered, and for some reason that pleased him, as if grief were shared, even at a distance. But soon he wanted more. He dug deeper, through every friend list, tagged post, every pixel she'd ever left behind. His computer, once used for work, had become a shrine. Folders nested within folders. Photos zoomed in until her face disintegrated into colored static. He told himself it was love, that love meant persistence, that if she had truly meant to disappear from his life, she wouldn't have left him access, however faint, to her digital trail. She wanted to be found. She just didn't know it yet. One night, he left the apartment. It was raining, the kind of soft, whispering rain that seemed to make everything more intimate, more secretive. His shoes were soaked within minutes, but he didn't feel it. He had memorized her new address weeks ago, found it buried in the metadata of a photo she hadn't meant to post. She lived across town, in a quiet building surrounded by trees that now looked like withered bones in the streetlights. His heart beat strangely, fluttering against his chest like something trapped. He didn't plan to go in. Not at first, just to stand outside, maybe see her through the window. But the building's front door was old, the lock a joke. His fingers knew what to do. They moved with a calm that felt like someone else had taken over. The elevator moaned on its way up. Floor 6, her name on the doorbell neatly printed. He didn't press it, just leaned in, listening. Then, footsteps. Not hers. A man's voice, low and private, murmuring something soft. And then her laughter, muted, but unmistakably real. He stepped back as if struck. The hallway tilted. A heat built in his chest, surged upward until his ears rang. She was not alone. She had given herself to someone else. While he rotted in that apartment, she had moved on. The world narrowed. His breath was thunder. His hands shook. He didn't remember walking down the stairs. He didn't remember the walk home. The next thing he knew, he was standing in front of the bathroom mirror, red around his eyes, fingernails broken where they had clawed into his palms. He began talking to her. First, it was to a photograph taped to the fridge. Then to her voicemail. Then, just aloud, to the apartment, to the air. She was everywhere now. He ate breakfast with her, whispered goodnight, stroked the indentation on her old side of the bed. When the silence grew too loud, he shouted at her, accused her of betrayal. Then he begged. Then he wept. One day, he found himself outside her building again. This time, he stayed until morning. She never came out. Or maybe she did and he missed her. That night, he returned with a pair of binoculars, waited across the street, face half hidden beneath a scarf. He saw the man again, tall, clean-shaven. She laughed at something he said and touched his arm. A gesture so small, so thoughtless. To him, it was desecration. His grip on reality began to dissolve. Objects in his apartment blurred, lost their purpose. The toaster hummed a rhythm he swore matched her voice. The flicker of the TV in an empty room seemed to echo her steps. One night, he stared at her picture so long that her eyes began to move, or so he believed. She was watching him now, silently apologizing, or mocking him. He couldn't tell which. Then came the plan. He didn't name it that way. It wasn't a plan. It was a culmination, a direction his mind naturally turned to, like a flower following the sun. If he couldn't forget her, if she wouldn't return, if the world insisted on going on without the two of them entangled, then he would make it stop. He bought gloves. A small knife. Not large, just something discreet. In his mind, it wasn't violence. It was clarity, a cleansing, a moment of truth in a world too full of masks. He rehearsed the words he would say to her when she opened the door. Not accusations, not rage, just questions. Why? When did you stop? Why didn't you say goodbye like you meant it? But she never opened the door. Because she was not there. They had moved out weeks ago. Her social media, now private, was a ghost town. He stood in front of the empty apartment until someone called the building manager, who told him bluntly to leave before the police were involved. He returned home, wordless. That night, he scrubbed the apartment clean, washed every dish, folded every shirt. He shaved, took a shower, burned the photos. The fire alarm screamed, but he didn't move. Smoke filled the air like fog rolling across a battlefield. He sat in the middle of it, cross-legged, silent, soot painting his skin like war paint. The next morning, he wrote her a letter. It began, "I loved you so hard I lost myself." And it ended, "If you ever come back and the walls are white again, know that I tried to remember how to be someone else." No one ever heard from him again. When the landlord finally entered, months later, they found the apartment stripped bare. Walls bleached to a painful white, nothing left but a mirror, cracked down the center, and a single red glove resting beside it like a heart removed from the body it once loved too much to survive.